radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
40 Laura. This narrative is a very convenient narrative, isn't it, for the Democrats? You hear the patter now for the last 48, 72 hours. It's the bump stock. It's the NRA. It's the magazine capacity. And they're all reading from the same playbook. Everyone's reading the same lines. It's almost as if they were practicing this.
Remember the other day, the talking point was, your prayers are not enough. Everybody's
repeating the prayers, thoughts and prayers, not enough. Thoughts and prayers, not enough.
From Jimmy Kimmel to Schumer to Hillary.
Let me just say, I can't take Jimmy Kimmel anymore. I've not.
Now wait a minute.
It's so funny.
Moved by this. It's his hometown. He's moved by it.
There are certain people who take these tragedies, a mass killing, and they seem almost. Again, who am I to judge, to quote Pope Francis? But it seems as though certain people are actually using this tragedy to build their own brands. And to one-up the next host or one-up the next commentator on moral outrage.
In the minds of these madmen, when they see Congress doing absolutely nothing, shooting after shooting, they read that as quiet acceptance of the carnage. It has to stop.
In other words, if you are a gun owner, if you are a donor to the NRA, if you are a member, and indeed a proud member of the NRA, you are tacitly condoning mass murder. That is where we are right now in this conversation. This is where the Democrats always want to take it. They want to go right for the Second Amendment. They want to go right for the limitations of individual freedom, personal liberty. It's always how to remove liberty from law-abiding individuals. How do we suck away a little bit of liberty at a time? It'll start with this, we're just going to limit magazines. Then it's the number of purchases of guns in a year. They started doing this morning, and I've now noticed there are several different threads to their tapestry of freedom robbing that we're hearing repeated on television. The issue with the magazines is one, the size of the magazines. The issue with the bump stock. The issue with the modification of the guns. And, of course, the desire to limit the number of guns an individual can purchase in any given period of time. Now, they repeated this throughout the morning, especially over there at CNN and also MSNBC, where you heard the paragons of intellect and I think compassion, such as Chris Cuomo, opining on the, well, he had 47 guns. Do you know that he could have bought, it turns out he bought 33 of them in 1 year?
33 weapons in the last year. This is a little bit of an adjustment of our time frame because we had been told that he had amassed his collection over decades. But what does that mean that he had gotten a big bunch of them in the last year? Certainly nothing illegal about that unless he buys them in a huge volume in one place and raises a red flag to that owner.
Yep.
The current state of the law, you can amass 33 guns in a year.
Nothing illegal about that.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay, all of you people out there who are law-abiding Americans, if you've bought more than whatever the acceptable number, give me the number. Whatever Chris Cuomo and his merry band of regulators want to throw out a number. Just give me a number. What's the best number? How many guns would it really have taken in that room to kill as many people as he killed? Two, maybe three. Could have killed that many people. Maybe he used 4. Doesn't matter if he had 30. You see how ridiculous this is? Doesn't matter if he bought 33 guns in a year. He only needed to use a few to commit mass murder. But the Democrats' response is always less freedom. It's always less freedom. It's less freedom in pretty much everything you choose except abortion and recycling. Then right? Less freedom. No, sorry. Abortion, you can abort as many babies as you want in a year, but you can't buy as many guns as you want in a year. It took a handful of guns, maybe 2, to carry out the carnage that he decided to carry out. There are a lot of interesting elements to this, a lot of questions to this case, and we're not spending all 3 hours on this. Other shows are doing all 3 hours. No. This gives the sickos and the freaks more of an impetus to carry out these acts, these evil acts, because they become, in their own twisted, sick minds, heroes in the aftermath. We're not going to play that game on this show. But I will tell you this. There are very strange and unanswered elements of this story. Unanswered questions. I was reading some of the accounts this morning. And it is very interesting that police believed at one point that there might have been as many as 3 attackers. Now, these are experts. These are the people who are experts in gunfire, gun patterns. The Washington Post today. The volume of Paddock's fire made implausible the idea that one man was behind it. But in the end, then again, just taking it as gospel, but in the end, it was just Paddock. His motive still a mystery. A man who had taken extraordinary steps to monitor the progress of the raid in his own room, a raid he knew would be coming. They believed at one point it was 2 people, 2 shooters. You could hear it on the police radio. Then it was 3 shooters. 2 people close to the investigation said Paddock set up a remote video cameras, which streamed images through a tablet so he could see down the hall behind him as he fired into the audience below. Police found one camera on a room service cart parked in the hallway awaiting pickup.
Now we got to stop right there.
This is a guy who was a mail carrier?
But he's in a hotel. He's not at Holiday Inn, off of Route 12. He's in a Las Vegas casino hotel, the Mandalay Bay. There are cameras
everywhere. We've stayed there.
Everywhere. Men's stall.
Everywhere.
Not a movement can be missed by the eyes in the sky. How could the guy have set up cameras on a rolling cart in a hallway and escape detection? I don't understand.
And I think someone could do that who was an expert in the intelligence community, someone who worked for the CIA, NSA, someone who understood intelligence gathering strategies, someone with a background and a military sniper, but not some guy who is just a mail carrier, like to play video poker. It's all very curious.
He worked for the IRS for a little while.
A little stint to some Raytheon guy, but
then he's a millionaire who owns multiple residences all over the country.
Probably alerted by the images of police approaching his suite at the end of a long hallway. So the guy is firing down below and then looking over at the camera. I mean, it's a lot of strange things. And initially we heard it was a 4-minute gunfire. Last night it was 7 to 11 minutes, 9 to 11 minutes.
9 to 11 minutes.
Now this is an objective fact, how long the gunfire lasted. The experts, the snipers that they had brought in, the SWAT team said 3 shooters. 3. Then suddenly, they did the blast they did the blast. He shot through the door, opened the door. Sometime later, 15 minutes past, 20 minutes past, open the door, pool of blood behind his head. Now, if you're writing this as a script, this is like something out of 24. You're writing it. If you're writing the movie script about this, you wouldn't write it as not really as a mail carrier. It just had some. It's odd. It's something. Is it just me, or is it my woman's intuition? Something about this whole narrative seems strange. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that we weren't given the right information at the right time. Maybe it was the chronology of the information. I don't know. But everyone's just willing to say, okay, no terrorism, acted alone, woman didn't know anything about it. Everything's already decided. It's very strange.
They haven't even gone through the room yet.
Oh, no,
They're
they
still
did go.
doing forensics
They have gone.
on the
yeah,
room.
The room is still a crime scene, but somehow photos of the room were obviously sold. They were sold.
To the Daily Mail and other European
Daily Mail got
entities.
copies of them. European press. Now, why do you think they didn't go to the American press on this? More easily traceable to the American press. They decided to go to foreign press to give the photos. Now, the people in the room were police, federal investigators. Which one of them gave the photos and why? Just some money? It's a very strange.
Even the scene
very
is odd.
strange. The scene is odd.
You've got
Perfect.
guns strewn about on the
guns.
floor.
I'm just saying, as an observer, I'm not an expert. I'm just a person. I'm just a person who has some common sense. This all seems a little odd. And it could just be an odd set of circumstances. The photos of the crime scene, the magazines, then you see the bump stock to the right, then the bullets scattered around, and they end up in the hands of these odd foreign websites, and they end up, the Daily Mail, of course, gets, that's strange. A strange thing. Now, if they wanted to release the video of him checking in, to be grammatically correct, his checking into the hotel, boy, you could pinpoint that, as I said 2 days ago, you could pinpoint that within minutes because it's all computerized. When did room 2201 check in? Oh, here it is. Checked in 11:54 a.m. and 13 seconds because that's when we issued the key card. Pull the video up. I want to see him bring those 10 bags in. We know it's 10 bags. We know he brought in the 10 bags. How do we know he brought in the 10 bags? Do we have the video confirmation of this man bringing in 10 bags that we know held all the guns? See, I'm someone who believes you actually have to have the facts before you pronounce this couldn't have happened, this couldn't have happened, that couldn't have happened, and that couldn't have happened. I mean, that couldn't have happened? 24 hours ago, you were telling us it was 4 minutes of gunfire. And then 12 hours ago, suddenly it was 9 to 11 minutes. 855-40-LAURA. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I ridicule conspiracy theorists on this show as we do regularly. But I just think there's a
lot of unanswered questions.
I don't like the rush to pronounce things out of the question until you have a full investigation. And I don't like the idea that crime scene photos are leaked to foreign press as this push for gun control is building in steam. The narrative's building. You got the bump clip. You got the magazine. You got the stands, the tripods, the volume. First it's 18 guns. Then first it was 8 guns in the room. Remember that? It was 9 guns, 8 guns. Then it was 12. Suddenly it was 23. Then it's 37. Then we got there's 47 guns.
We're up to 47 between the houses and the hotel now.
No, but there was a lot of... So why are you rushing to pronounce on possible motive, on possible involvement of others, on before you even knew how long the gunfire lasted? Something about that seems odd to me. 855-40-LAURA. You can react to my comments. A lot more. I'm sure every one of my listeners understands the importance of oral care to your overall health. There's no denying the connection. And I'm also sure that many of you have a sensitive mouth or gums. And sometimes you have painful canker sores, or sadly, maybe even painful sores from something like chemotherapy, from cancer treatment. And what you may not know is that your mouthwash, especially if it's one of those brands that really burns, it may be making things worse. So you should try non-irritating, alcohol-free Closis Oral Rinse. That's Closys. Closis is like first aid for your mouth. It's as gentle as water, but it helps relieve common but uncomfortable, even painful issues in your mouth. And unlike other mouthwashes, Closis is also pH balanced, which eliminates the burn and the irritation. Try Closis Oral Rinse for sensitive mouth gums and canker sores for pain-free oral care. That's Closis, Closys. Learn more about the gentle, effective oral rinse at Closis.com or get Closis today at Walgreens, CVS Health, and...
Hey, Laura. My comment is that it's less than 1%. I mean, it's just a small little percentage of people that are ruining it for everybody, like the shooter. There's thousands of people that own guns in
millions.
the U.S.
No, millions.
And then the same thing.
Yeah, millions.
Oh, yeah, millions. And same thing with Kaepernick. He's one football player out of many that's ruining it for everybody.
I think there are more than one, unfortunately. But, yeah, I see your point. I mean, everyone likes to extrapolate out from this and say it's all bad, it's all bad, it's all bad. We have some doozy sound bites for you. Pat Buchanan's going to be joining us in just a few moments about what is dividing this country more than ever. We've always been a divided nation. We know that. That's the nature of being a representative democracy, going through struggles in our society. But today we're divided along foundational principles. Those are dividing us. It used to be, rivalries and South-North. Now it's just foundational principles. It's amazing. Let's go to Brian, New Hampshire. Brian.
Hi. I'm a little tired of the Democrats playing tackle football and the Republicans playing tag because, they talk about not making this political, but the Democrats are making it political. So, if they want to make it political, fine. Let's make it political.
I can't hear you, but I see your point. Look, one reaction to this is more freedom. More freedom. Guess what happened with the police? They found out real quick, the SWAT teams, that concert goers were moving in to take the police rifles to defend themselves. They had extra rifles in the back of their shotguns in the back of their squad cars in their vehicles. And more than one police officer reported that concert goers were trying to get in and to get somebody to defend themselves. They didn't know what was going down. So all these people said, well, a gun's not going to help you in a time like this. Well, maybe not in this circumstance, because this is all very convenient up high. But in that French nightclub, when the people were throwing shoes at the attackers who had the weapons, a gun would have helped there, big time. Buchanan up next. Little nip in the air. Love it. We've had some hot weather in Washington, but now it's more fall-like. And it feels good. It's college football, it's apple picking, Halloween. Roll right into the holidays. But you gotta look good. Look your best. That means you gotta have your hair look the best, not dry and brittle because of the change of seasons. Cell Therapy by Ovation will help rejuvenate your hair. It certainly helped my hair. I just used it. My hair's still wet. I didn't have a chance to blow dry it. So I just used my Ovation down in the shower, down at the gym in our building. And it smells good, makes you feel good. You'll love it. All you need to do is go to ovationhair.com, select Laura Ingraham in the survey at checkout, and you get the special new customer discount and free shipping. It's for a limited time, though. Ovation Hair is the best hair. You'll love it. Ovationhair.com. Remember, select Laura Ingraham in the survey at checkout. It's hair care unlike anything you've experienced before at ovationhair.com. A lot of questions remaining unanswered. Very interesting, some say curious timeline in this Las Vegas mass shooting. At one point, police officers confirmed that it was two shooters. Then they had said it was 3 shooters. Implausible one person could have carried this out. And then they blow through the door, and Mr. Paddock is on his back, blood pooled behind his head, a semi-automatic pistol nearby, bump stocks, magazines, guns strewn about the room, and photos of the crime scene taken, presumably by investigators. They didn't let any journalists go roaming through a crime scene. It's an ongoing investigation. Then, lo and behold, those pictures show up in a foreign media outlet and then distributed to foreign press. Very interesting. I wonder why. Joining us now, Pat Buchanan, author, commentator, presidential advisor. He wrote a terrific piece, A Moment of Unity in a Disintegrating World. He joins us now. Pat, it's good to talk to you. The patter that we're hearing repeated, the same lines from mostly Democrats, on the size of the magazine, the bump stock. He purchased 33 guns in a year. Thoughts and prayers aren't enough. They're all reading from the same tedious playbook.
They do get back on the same hobby horse and start riding it again and again and again every time one of these incidents occurs. But I think there's really, in this, I haven't seen, Laura, any mailed agenda or statement of beliefs or, some aggressive note about what the national government did to him. I think what we got here is something that's fairly clear and fairly simple. This guy decided to end his life. He decided to commit suicide either by gunshot to his mouth or either by a police shooting him. And he planned to go out as the greatest mass murderer in American history. And he moved all those guns in over 5 days and plotted this all out and began shooting and killing people down there in order that he would exceed anyone else. For example, the thing that comes to mind is when I was fairly young, Charlie Whitman, 1966, I believe it was, went up in that tower, Texas Tower at Austin, and shot, I believe, 41 people and murdered 15. This is similar to that. It's just he wants to end his life in a blaze of what for him might be glory and what for the nation is incredible horror.
Well, I think that Republicans tend to themselves get into a defensive crouch when the Democrats jump on their moral high ground here and start lecturing on guns. And I think it's precisely at this time where Americans should realize that there's not a government solution for every problem, that there is evil in the world, real evil.
This is exactly right. This is what the interesting question to me here is, what kind of evil does it take? I mean, here's someone with a dead soul. His conscience is completely dead. I mean, I don't care how bad a number of people are, they would recoil, at firing a semi-automatic or an automatic weapon into a crowd of concert goers, none of whom they can have a grudge against, probably none of whom they know, and just do that, the callous and total indifference to the value of human life. That suggests to me, something is dead inside. What was it Raskolnikov who said, if God is dead, everything is permissible? And this individual clearly believes that he's not going to suffer any more other than that gunshot to his head that killed him for what he has done, this horror he has perpetrated on living human beings. I'd really be more interested in the character of that man's soul and what it was like than whether he sent some agenda, that the federal government has abused me and I've had trouble with the IRS.
Well, I think that we live in a society where there's so much depravity. I mean, at every turn. I was in New York the last couple of days, and it's fun to go to New York. I mean, I had to be there for Fox, and I have a lot of great memories with my brothers there as a kid, and even when the difficult times of crime and so forth. It's always been fun. But walking across Times Square, now you run into women that have just Band-Aids on their breasts and are essentially wearing thongs, walking around with body paint, and children. There's just it's the level of sort of pornography, violent pornography, and run-of-the-mill just kind of gross stuff.
Right, it is
everywhere.
Whatever they say about the 1950s, which were a pretty good time, and wasn't a saintly decade. The complete de-Christianization of the culture and of the natural, the prohibitions in society and the restraints and the beliefs that people followed about modesty and decency and morality and things. That's gradually, it takes generations once the root is cut. But the root has been cut, and I think the situation is not going to get better and better. Indeed, now there's so many we can't count of these mass murders where individuals just go in and shoot and kill as many people as they can, knowing full well that they're going to command unprecedented coverage. Look what we got out there. You got every commentator talking about it. We're talking about it a couple of days later.
Yeah.
You got all Fox News, CNN, MSNBC,
like
all
there's no other
there.
story. There's no other story.
Well, exactly, and this guy is a nobody, and now he's
a somebody. That's why I reject covering this 24/7. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right to me.
This is why. See, this is the currency he wanted to be paid in, and he's being paid. This was a success for this guy because he's got. I mean, we got North Korea and Puerto Rico and everything all off page one. And you read more and more about him, and the 100,000 he sent to the Philippines, and is there a note somewhere, and all this interest in him, and nobody gave a damn about that guy for his whole life, and now everybody in the world is talking and writing about him, which is his reward. He succeeded.
And it's perverse in that the media culture,
the society.
Yeah, that the media culture, which back in 1996, when I started at MSNBC, I dubbed it Tragedy TV, TTV, whether it was JonBenet Ramsey or Chandra Levy or Natalie Holloway. These stories, in a way, are easier to cover.
Well, but they say something about society because the editors picking the placement and sending the reporters know what folks want to read.
Well, in the absence of anything else, they'll watch it. I mean, I do believe that. I do believe that.
War with North Korea is a pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fascinating, Pat. I think what the fact that we have Puerto Rico that was on the verge of bankruptcy, now it could cost us $1 trillion to rebuild Puerto Rico.
Verge, Laura, they're not on the verge.
Yeah, bankrupt.
They are there.
Yeah, well, now they clearly are, but it's teetering. And now we're
teetering, but it is. I mean, but the tragedy of those people, it's an enormous. I mean,
awful.
It's a big island. Is it 100 miles by 40 miles or something like that? And it's almost all of the power out, and you can imagine the suffering and
awful. Imagine if we had that $135 billion a year we spend on the illegal immigrants, Pat.
Well,
a lot of money.
There's a lot of things that we spend money on that could be better spent. Going down and helping out those folks down there.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of Trump throwing those paper towels at the crowd? That was kind of
extremely classy.
What was that? What are you doing? What are you doing? Throwing paper towels at people?
I'm ceased.
I don't know what to say, and I like the guy.
I'm not making explanations anymore.
No. He's a different animal.
He's a different creature.
It's an icebreaker. Right. Maybe it's an icebreaker, Pat. I
mean, frankly, I wasn't all that bothered by it, but it is something you would not expect Dwight Eisenhower to have done.
No.
He's bringing... Pat, he's trying to bring a New Orleanian flair, a kind of Mardi Gras enthusiasm to the proceedings, trying to lighten their load, maybe.
And as he left, he said, "Have a good time." Have a good time. Okay, you too.
It was right. We're enjoying it.
Well, that's what you do. Hillary Clinton was on some obscure podcast. Pat, here's what I say. When I'm going on an obscure podcast, I need you to come over to my house and just smother me with a pillow, okay? I preferably 400 thread count down pillow, or a My Pillow. But I want you to smother me, okay? Because Hillary is now relegated to going on obscure podcasts that have like 4 or 5 listeners, and this is what she said.
It is a sign of the deep dysfunction of this government and this Republican Party that has been taken over by extreme elements to the point that they are doing whatever they're told to do. Yeah. There is no room for discretion, for conscience. It is heartbreaking.
It's the same exact thing, speaking of playbook, that Michelle said last week.
Well, to me, that just says you don't like your voice. You like the thing we're told to like.
Yeah, you like the thing you're told to like. You're not thinking for yourself. And Hillary, lo and behold, repeats that this week. Extreme elements within the party. Pat, they were saying that about you when the pitchforks were in New Hampshire back in '92.
Well, they might have had a point.
Yeah. Well.
No, but listen, this is, the protest and the wailing, You got to realize what Hillary Clinton is. Look, heavily favored, the odds-on favored candidate for the nomination in the election, and she lost to the folks she describes. Now that says more to me about her and her inabilities and her lack of connection with the American people than it does about anybody else. I mean, this is the ultimate in sour grapes.
Well, and she, of course, doesn't acknowledge the fact that the most extreme elements in American politics are those who defend abortion on demand, who have no ability to debate any moral question or cultural issue without just demonizing the other side. To me, it's extreme to keep doing these stupid trade deals that have offshored our income, our jobs.
Look,
that's extreme.
Exactly. And look, I don't know, we may have a lot of failings on our side of the fence, but I'm not sure that we are in need of lectures on morality from Bill and Hillary Clinton, frankly. On what is right and what the conscience teaches you to do, etc. You're right. I mean, we're a country that since 1973, I think, has carried out, 55 million abortions, the destruction of the lives of unborn children, many of them all the way moved almost to birth, and then to be lecturing folks on morality. I don't think we need it.
No. In your column, Pat, you referenced Barcelona as you talked about the rising populism. My book comes out next week, The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. It's called Billionaire at the Barricades. And I talk about this in the book, but I loved how you referenced this Catalan movement for independence. The vote was called illegal by Spain, and thus the United States would not condone it or support it. What's going on there?
Well, there's a movement many movements across Europe that overlap. One of them is, and you can call it by the right word, which is tribalism. The people of Catalonia, a huge slice of them, probably more than half now, identify more with their fellow Catalans, and they're Catalans first and Spaniards second, and they want to realize they want to create their own nation state, and they want to have their own culture and their own separate identity. We saw that in Scotland. We saw it in Quebec, where it barely failed also. You can see it in Padania in northern Italy. You can see it in Bavaria. Flanders wants to move out of Belgium. These are sub-nations. That's one of the great movements, tribalism, which is pulling at the EU. And another is to secede to overthrow the big central government that's rising over people in Europe. And then you got the North-South divide between the haves and have-nots, who are the haves imposing austerity on the have-nots. And then you got the great movement coming across the Mediterranean, where Africa is going to have not 1 but 2 billion people by mid-century. Many of them are coming across the Mediterranean. They're going to be trying to come across. They're coming out of the Middle East. And you got declining populations in every country in Europe, I think, except for Iceland, since 1975. And so I think you're having a defensive recoil, and it is really a camp of the saints moment.
Yeah, Poland,
all these forces are being propelled by it.
And they didn't vote for it. They didn't want it. Poland says no. Czech Republic says no. So far this year, more than 104,000 people have entered Italy, most of them before mid-July. Those are the refugees, overwhelmingly Islamic, overwhelmingly young males. 104,000. That's considered progress. Pat Buchanan on the Laura Ingraham. I mean, how many speeches did Bill give over there in Moscow? She give to Goldman Sachs behind closed doors,
selling guns, selling influence. What the heck?
My goodness, hundreds of thousands of dollars poured into that Clinton Foundation, access to power. All dry. It's funny how it all dried up after Hillary left the State Department. All that money just started to dry up. Isn't that interesting?
At the time, this didn't seem like an issue.
She is just a piece of work.
How long is this tour going to go on?
She's now doing high school podcasts.
Well,
Hillary Clinton joins us now on the Farm Tools Weekly. I mean, this is just... She really... It's a level of shamelessness. Pat Buchanan was on our show and made this point. He said that what this twisted man... If he indeed acted alone, that's what they tell us. He acted alone. I like to wait until investigations are complete, but They went from saying it's confirmed that there are 2 shooters, possibly 3, to definitely act alone. No terrorism, no. They went through the whole thing. So assuming that, then he is clearly a twisted man who Buchanan, I think, aptly said his soul was like a barren desert. There was nothingness there. He believed that there was no judgment. The only judgment, the only pain he would ever feel would be the gunshot to the mouth. He didn't believe in right and wrong, good and evil. He just did what he could do, perhaps, to get fame. Look, all these people are talking about this guy. No one cared who he was. No one knew his name. Now everybody knows his name. How much does the media fan the flames of depravity in the United States? When I say depravity, I mean those with dark hearts do watch. They watch, they take it all in, they listen. Most with dark hearts don't act on it. They're dark people.
Well, they go into politics, but...
Oh, yeah, that's true. they go work for the Clinton Foundation. But most people don't commit violent acts. They live lives of kind of quiet desperation. But those who see this, who are these lonely, sad sack types who maybe amass guns, or maybe they amass something else, maybe they do drugs, maybe they're addicted to porn, maybe, who knows, they're by themselves a lot, or they steep themselves in hobbies, they drink alone. Those who drink alone, watch out, always a problem. Imagine what those people are taking in now over the last 72 hours. Not that, of course, this needs to be covered and this is the worst mass shooting in history, but the extent of the coverage. We're on the verge of war with North Korea. We have a mass migration, Islamic migration going on in Europe. News just out that the flow has steadied. It's not increasing, but it's steadied. Only 104,000 came into Italy from January to mid-July. That's all, 104,000. By the way, now they're going into Romania. That's how they're coming in now. They're coming in at 572 a pop on some of these rickety old boats. Okay, so now they're moving in different directions, different numbers. Big story. It's got Puerto Rico. This is American territory. We have 94% of the island is out of power, struggling for water, basic food supplies, gasoline. And yet we are covering this horrific mass killing and giving, as Pat Buchanan said, this man exactly what he wanted. The fame and the notoriety that he didn't have in his life, he now enjoys in his death. Do the media have any responsibility here?
There's a great show, Assassins, that Stephen Sondheim wrote many years ago, and it seeks to unpack the mentality of these people. And Pat nailed it. That's what it's about often. They're seeking that moment of glory, that moment of fame, that retribution.
He had no father. He didn't live with his father, who was himself a psychopath.
Right, on the FBI's most wanted list.
So there could be a genetic component. We don't know. Again, we don't know.
They're also, the details of this
murky.
Still don't add up. I mean, there are a lot of odd things. How do you move that much artillery into a hotel in Vegas? It doesn't add up. That piece of it is strange. And the two windows so far apart, 64-year-old man running back and forth.
And the police confirming, Washington Post reports today, confirming, in the immediate aftermath, confirming there were 2 shooters. Then at one point saying 3. Well, what changed was when Stephen Paddock shot through the door, they backed off.
Then the SWAT team went in.
Then, at least 15 minutes later, perhaps more, the SWAT team goes in. That's when they find a single person in the room, Paddock, dead. The gunshot wound to the head with a semi-automatic revolver near him.
Wouldn't you love Sherlock Holmes or Columbo to investigate this case?
Yeah, so they said it's a lone gunman, eh?
Locked room, 2 windows.
One more question.
Can I ask just one?
Can I ask
question?
one?
I was thinking.
There's another. Is there any other entrance point into this room? Just throwing this out there. If someone wanted to crawl into the room, you're saying there's no way into this room, no way in, and no way out. The thing that's interesting is they released that. They seem to release that those crime scene photos.
That's horrible. That should not be.
Well,
there has an investigator.
Well, clearly it's one of the police or the federal agents in that room. There is a log of everybody who goes into that room, and I imagine everybody's cameras are either taken from them or they're the individuals who take the photos. Can find out who gave those photos to the foreign press. Why are those photos out there, but we haven't seen him check in yet? So very interesting. Well, I know the conspiracy theorists out there are all saying this looks like a movie set. Looks like the props are thrown down on the floor. I'm not saying that. But I do think it's odd that foreign press gets their hands on these photos. An ongoing active crime investigation of the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. Suddenly they end up on some weird website, and they're strange. No one seems outraged by that. I'm totally outraged by that. How do we know that the crime scene the integrity of it was preserved? If you had people who were selling photos or giving photos to foreign press, how do we know the crime scene was preserved? The integrity of the crime scene. Is this thing been filmed 24 hours a day? Is this being surveilled 24 hours a day? Have we sealed off every entrance point into that room 24 hours a day? Yes, no, maybe? I'd like answers. I want the real TikTok on this. What went down? 855-40 Laura. The Democrats want the guns. Democrats want the guns. They've always wanted the guns. Oh, if you want a hunting rifle, you can buy one every 10 years. Okay? Every 10 years.
But you have to load the ball. What do they want? The ball in the chamber?
Yeah,
no
then
bullets?
You have the barrel
plunger?
Compressor. Yeah. The plunger in.
Then you put the gunpowder on top and pack it down.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting, if you listen to the media narrative, it's all about how many guns he got over what period of time, and then any alterations he made to the gun, and we need to conscript that. That is problematic for a number of reasons. Because one guy, look, I had a very smart young lady the other day who was works in a news organization, and she said, I used to be opposed to any gun limitations, but now after seeing this, I really think we need to limit guns. I said, stop for a minute. We have ISIS running people down in European capitals, like taking a truck and running them over. Are we going to outlaw bumpers, outlaw Buicks, outlaw trucks? Maybe we should all drive smart cars with rubber on the edges that only go 5 miles an hour? I mean, you're never going to remove hatred from the heart of man. And you can't stop inanimate objects. I could use this cell phone to kill somebody if I'm smart about it. If I file down the edges and I know what I'm doing, I could take 5 people out before you stop me. Where do you end? How many things do you wheel back? Inanimate objects don't harm anyone. People harm other people.
And one of the things that we have seen over the past decade is a rising support among Americans for ever broader definitions of gun rights. There is something very wrong with the American gun culture. 3% of the people own 50% of the weapons in this country. I mean, a tiny number of people own vast numbers of weapons.
David Fromm, 3% of the people own the vast majority of the weapons. Is this the haves versus the have-nots?
This is a curious...
Then maybe we could get... It's an odd way of looking at it. He's Canadian, David Fromm. I know the Fromms. I like them. They're good people, and it's fine. I mean, you can have that viewpoint, I guess, but... I mean, it's not in our Constitution. Yeah, the framers,
right.
The framers wanted to limit the number of guns, the type of guns, how many guns, which guns people have. Where is that contemplated?
Until you persuade people that it is just dangerous to themselves, their children. You're not a good parent if you have a gun in your house. You're not protecting your family. You're a bad parent if you have a gun in the house. Until you drill that idea into people's heads and persuade them to change the way we change about cigarettes and seatbelts.
Oh, boy.
He's went on to say you're going to keep having these problems. Well, that's I wouldn't have phrased it that way were I he. Oh. Are you a bad parent for having a gun in the house? Let's go back and this is where my kids over there, my researchers, get me all the lists of the people who've saved themselves and their families by brandishing a gun in the home. Just brandishing a gun. Save lives. Innocent life. Yeah, there are a lot of people who, you know, commit suicide. Yeah, they do. Through a variety of ways. Gunshot, hanging, throw themselves off a building, throw themselves off a bridge, and that's terrible. But the idea that if you have a gun in the home, you're a bad parent, I thought liberals were supposed to be non-judgmental. Well, that's free choice, pro-choice. Aren't we pro-choice? Pro-choice here's what we're pro-choice about. As many abortions as you want, pornography, and drugs. Sexting. Those are the three things. Sexting, porn, drugs, and abortions. We're totally for freedom. Everything else, less freedom for the people. Those people are so dumb they can't have a gun in the home with a kid.
That's really that takes some cojones to say you're a bad parent for having a gun,
That's
and we
tricky.
need to drill that idea into your mind.
Again, you're being led along.
The gun culture.
But I thought we were being led along. But now we need to be led along by other people. 855-40-LAURA. You're a bad parent if you have a gun in the home. Let's talk about education for a moment, shall we? Did you know that more than 15 states now have begun requiring high school students to pass a basic citizenship test in order to graduate? It's sad that such a test is even necessary. And it shows me that, to an extent, American civics education doesn't even exist anymore. And it needs help. We need to rejuvenate it. That's why, beginning with their free online courses and Imprimis, Hillsdale College is making an impact in K-12 education. Here's how. Hillsdale provides ongoing support and guidance to classical K-12 charter schools nationwide. Thousands of elementary and high school students are already enrolled, and Hillsdale does it all without taking a single penny of taxpayer funding or money from the schools themselves. It's called the Barney Charter School Initiative, and it's revolutionizing K-12 education. You can learn more at lauraforhillsdale.com. Watch the brief, powerful video about this exciting work and witness the difference Hillsdale is making in thousands of lives across the country. That's Laura for Hillsdale. Richard Blumenthal, senator from the cratering state of Connecticut, which is being run like sadly, it's being run economically like Puerto Rico. Living beyond their means, and this is pre-hurricane Puerto Rico. Everyone's got to get their finances in order. I'd get your own finances in order before you start lecturing the rest of the country, Richard. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. But wow, we're getting a lot of reaction to this comment that, until we drill it into people's heads that if you have a gun in the home, you're a bad parent, then we're going to keep having these instances of people going nuts in these terrible gun tragedies.
Until you persuade people that it is just dangerous to themselves, their children, you're not a good parent.
If you have a gun in the home. If you have a gun in the home.
David Frum on
You're
MSNBC.
not a good parent if you have a gun in the home is the bite. That's wild. I'd be real careful. I wouldn't be judging people on that.
I'd love to hear from veterans.
Veterans who, have guns and are good people.
And in a minute, I'm going to run down some of the more recent examples of people who've used guns for the good.
Taylor in Montana. Line 2. I bet Montanans have a lot to say about that comment. Taylor.
I just wanted to say that my parents, I'm 22 years old, conservative, very proud, and I was surrounded by guns. We hunt. That's how we feed our family, how we help our community, and I feel like I'm a better person. I know how to handle a weapon. I can protect myself, protect my loved ones, and I know I can respect people better.
Well, as a woman who knows how to use a gun, grew up with guns, I feel like I'm leveling the playing field if someone blows through my front door. And as a single woman with kids, I resent someone saying, if I had a gun, that I would be a bad parent. I don't, boy, we're all told not to judge different types of families. Well,
choices.
How about if you do pot? If you're a parent and you do pot, are you a bad parent? You willing to say that? If you're a parent and you allow your kids to stay on a cell phone several hours, are you a bad parent then? Or are you only a bad parent if you have a gun in the home? That's wild. Wild. Chris in Mississippi, line 5. Chris. Chris, go ahead. Hey, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Chris in St. Louis, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm an hour delay behind you, but anyways, I have a tinfoil hat theory. I am ex-military, and I do own guns. You know, they're locked in a safe, and anyways, I take very good precautions. My good friends' kids were down there over in Las Vegas, and when you were speaking earlier of more than one shooter, they swear that there was coming shots more than once, okay, from different angles. And also, this gentleman knew way too much how to set up cameras, his angles, his shots, everything. It just doesn't add up. And he was a postal worker. He worked for the IRS, and they said something about lockkeep. Very, very odd.
Yeah, former military has lots of questions, just like I have. Some great news for you guys. Chamonix has extended their crazy Genucel warehouse clearance sale. You call them right now, and you get double your order of Genucel free. Genucel is a natural plant stem cell treatment with advanced peptides, those very pesky and annoying bags and some of that puffiness under your eyes. And when Genucel has immediate effects, you're going to see amazing results in about 12 hours. So call now and get double your order of Genucel free. Genucel is backed by the best customer service in the business, has an ironclad 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee, but we are not finished. You call now, you get a 2-month supply of the deep firming serum, also free. 20 minutes from now, you get 20 minutes to do this. Check it out. You get a free 2-month supply of Esotique RF, which is the most popular wrinkle treatment that Chamonix has, and that's your 4th gift free. So call 800-480-5206 or go to Genucel.com. That's 800-480-5206. And do this while supplies last. Order now, and shipping is also free. 800-480-5206. But there also is a lot of other stories out there that we'll be covering in the next hour of the show, hour and a half of the show. And many questions about who this man really was and how someone with seemingly no relevant experience or expertise would go to the trouble to set up remote cameras and gun tripods and bring 10 pieces of heavy luggage into a hotel by himself. 10? Where are those photos of him checking in? I still want to see that video of him checking in, coming in the front door. I imagine all the doormen were bringing in that luggage. All at one time or different times? I mean, no photos of that at all. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, CIA, trained intel operative, senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. You see him a lot on Fox News. He joins us now. Colonel Shaffer, good to have you with us. How are you?
Hey, Laura, I'm very well. Thanks for having me. It seems like we only talk when bad things happen, but we are again,
Well, it's the way of the world, and sadly, evil exists. Government can't stop all evil. But the Democrats, they're certainly run into the guns. They want to take the guns. They've always wanted to take the guns. If they can limit the gun purchases or types of guns, they will do it. If they have to use tragedy to do it, they'll do it, even if none of the things that they're suggesting would have stopped this massacre from taking place. What questions remain with you after this initial reporting? Now we're getting a little bit more clarity on the TikTok of all of this, but with all your experience, what stands out?
Well, first, before I go into the experience, I think one of the things you've already mentioned, which is a mystery to a lot of us, is why law enforcement hasn't released a lot more of the video. And frankly, my law enforcement sources tell me Vegas already has looked at the video, his self-made video of the event, and there's a lot of clues on why he did it there. And I'm mystified of why that's not been released. I think it's going to counter some of the left narrative, which is basically, this guy was simply a random wacko. I think he had a purpose behind what he was doing. And then to your question about what I think is still missing, look, I think we need to get to the bottom of the methodology. He was self-trained. He had no military experience. One of the notable things, I was talking to one of my associates about this yesterday regarding a terror act. A terror act is always preceded, Laura, by certain observables. Virtually every terrorist does two things: rehearses and actually walks the ground of the attack. At some point in time, this guy had to do something that was notable. And you mentioned, come on, bringing 10 to 20 heavy bags into a hotel didn't raise somebody's shackles. So there's a lot of things that I think are really troubling here that we have not learned yet. And as you know, Catherine Herridge over at Fox has been covering this extensively, and she too has been right on top of trying to identify some of these really odd things left out. And let me note one more thing for you, and your audience may have already noted this. Look, the FBI to clear him of any terror link within hours of the event is completely insane, especially in light of the $100,000 he sent to the Philippines. And I'm here to tell you, I'm pretty sure that was not sent to the Philippines for purposes of water buffalo preservation. There was a reason why he sent that.
Well, we have the photos of the crime scene, an active crime investigation. Somehow photos of the guns scattered around the room with the magazines on the floor, the bullet casings, those end up on a foreign media website. Now, how did those get on that foreign media website, do you think?
Well, that's the point. You can see there's been very selective leaking. This goes back to the macro issue of what we've seen with the Trump administration, where you have certain folks within positions of authority leaking out what they want. This was a controlled leak. And so, as I said, Laura, they've pretty much probably been able to establish behind the scenes, and notably, the sheriff during his own press conference yesterday, the police chief of Vegas said there is he used the word, we need to figure out how he was radicalized. That was his word during the press conference. So again, they know.
So you think? Tony. So you think the guy had an Islamic connection? Let's get to the.
I do. Look, you part of it is there's two terrorist organizations within the Philippines. One is Al Qaeda related, the other is ISIS related. But again, I do believe that there's some path to radicalization we're going to find here. And again, I don't want to sound like some extremist here, but again, I'm just going with what the circumstantial evidence is. Again, nobody just randomly sends $100,000 to the Philippines. It's just not in his nature. And plus, I do believe, and I said this in other interviews, the very selection, the country music target, and the left's perception of it, Laura. I'm not saying they were Trump supporters, but the left has said over and over again, especially on CNN, that this was a Trump supporter hotspot. So if you go with that, this then mimics and parallels the Hodgkinson shooting of Congressman Scalise over in Alexandria here in our backyard. So I think the closest parallel I've seen so far, just a point-by-point event that mimics this, is the Hodgkinson shooting of Scalise. But it all goes back to this left-leaning people on the left have now allowed for violence to become an accepted part of their political speech, which is highly, highly dangerous. And that's the trend I'm seeing here. And this guy, was probably very unstable. I think that we're going to come to find that Paddock was probably, I just read something this morning. He was put on some sort of drugs, which indicates to me there was a mental instability. And there you go. I think all the ingredients were there.
Yeah, I asked for information through various sources yesterday about his medical condition. We know that the prescription drugs in this country are so readily available and overly utilized. There's an overprescription of medication that is occurring, and they have various reactions to them, some rather benign, but others not. We don't know what he was being medicated for. His brother, I thought it was odd when his brother who he hasn't seen in, 15 years or something, 10 years. His brother said, he's never gotten a parking ticket. He like rattled off. He made cookies. It wasn't, his brother was odd. The whole thing is odd to me. Very strange.
Well, I think that's the thing. Again, we have to continue to ask the hard questions and then, again, question the official narrative. Look, I am, you and I both know there's got to be a lot of camera footage. Those casinos in the entranceways. Where exactly? Where is it? And again, right. And then again, we know for a fact he, and I really loved their answer yesterday, Laura, when they said, well, he had all these cameras set up, but we don't know if he used them. It's like, what? Come on. Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, of course he used them. And again, this is where I'm concerned because, again, my trusted law enforcement sources are telling me, look, they've looked at that stuff. They're holding back for some reason, and we don't even know why they're holding back. So this is what is a bit frightening, is these controlled leaks, which are trying to make us focus only on the gun, but not on why the violence was conducted. And no matter what, Laura, we've seen, if it's not guns, it's knives. If it's not knives, it's acid. If it's not acid, it's vehicles. You're not going to mitigate violence in an open society. It's something you have to find a way to live with and obviously do what you can to get ahead of. And unfortunately, at this point, we just don't know what to get ahead of it on this one issue.
Tony Schaefer here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Tony, I've never, in my memory, I don't recall a fact pattern like this, and it doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, but a fact pattern where your target is a music festival of this sort from a high sniper point vantage point, two gun positions 22 feet apart. The man looked like he was either diabetic or very ill or just really out of shape, but he looked terrible.
Right.
Do you imagine him running back and forth 22 feet, fire here, while he's monitoring a cameras out in the hallway?
That's what I want to find out. I mean, this is one of the things I've looked at some of the video too, and the time it takes to move between those two fire positions, even by someone in shape, Laura, that's an exercise, especially when you're, in a situation where it's high stress. So I want to see what is on those videotapes for purposes of validating what they're saying. And I have had reasons to not trust the government based on my own experience regarding certain fallacies put forth. So this is where I think we are owed a clear and concise accounting of those minutes from the time he started shooting until the time that the Las Vegas SWAT moved in there and knocked the door down. And within the context of that, then, there needs to be a forensics examination of how this happened. And full disclosure here, look, the think tank, Lennis Center, we were approached 2 years ago by legislators in the Vegas area asking us to conduct an all hazards evaluation. Part of my background is what we call red teaming. We actually simulate, put in the shoes of terrorists or extremists of what they might do. And at the time, we priced it out, figured out who we'd all want to bring in. We'd bring in SEAL Team 6 guys and some other folks that would help us do the evaluation. And they said it was too expensive. So it's like, oh, okay. So I guess figuring things like this out in advance or trying to be prepared for it are really not in your interest. But I think there's going to be a lot of relooking now at what were the circumstances, how did this guy get trained, what can be done in the future to look at preventing or precluding or at least mitigating this sort of thing from being effective. But, Laura, look, this guy did his homework. He picked a venue, and I do believe that he picked this venue as a political statement. The target itself was a political statement. And he now, and I think the way the left has responded to this, they simply do not want to acknowledge this guy may have been motivated by their side of hate, and they're simply trying to look at the technology used, which is a weapon, not at the motivation behind it. And I think that's why you're seeing such a random and an unusual pattern of information release at this point in time.
Right, and within hours of the shooting, they still had dead bodies on the lot.
Right.
They were already saying there was no connection to terrorism. No connection. It was a lone wolf. Lone wolf, no terrorism. The girlfriend had nothing to do with it. And the bodies are still on the lot. I don't know. I didn't understand that. So there is a reason for people to be skeptical about what they've heard about this. And we see selective leaks in investigations all the time. We've seen them during the Trump administration, as Colonel Schaefer just reminded us. We've seen it in other administrations. What they want you to see and what they want the just regular workaday people to perceive. The photos, the images, the repeated themes that are coming out of the media. How many magazines did he have? How many guns did he purchase in a year? The bump stock. It's the pattern. It's a perception that they want to create without all relevant information released, which seems highly irresponsible at the very least. It's just irresponsible. I'll let you close it out.
Oh, no, everything you said is completely valid. And again, this is where I think everybody is doing their job, at least from what I can see, in certain news organizations. Others out there, we're all just trying to get to the bottom of this. We're not trying to stipulate or predict what we think happened. We just don't want to know what happened. And again, I'm concerned because, as you point out, and I've done information operations for 30 years, and I see the setup here too. There's very clearly an attempt here to shape and direct perception in a certain direction, almost a sleight of mouth, sleight of hand. So I would ask everyone listening today to actually demand answer to the hard questions. We know they have video. We know this guy did things. And simply put, they can't get to the bottom of the Trump collusion after over a year of looking at this. Do you really believe they can clear this guy of any terrorism involvement in 3 hours? I mean, come on here. So we've got to really look at this from a view of skepticism, but with an eye on resolution for the truth. And Laura, thank you for being on the vanguard on this and trying to push for all the information.
Yeah, I also ask another question, Tony. Who stands to profit from increased security at concerts and open air events? What organizations, what companies seek to profit? I'm not saying they're behind this. It's always interesting. Remember Rapiscan? Remember Mike Chertoff was on the board of Rapiscan? Remember after 9/11, suddenly Rapiscan was at every airport $60 billion later.
Yeah, I know, and I've been following private security behind the scenes, and they're obviously after the war's gone, they have all these folks highly trained, so they're looking for jobs, and this could be part of it.
Well, Tony, appreciate it so much, your perspective on this. Asking common sense questions. We just want the answers to those questions. That's all. Don't just leak out little dribs and drabs of information. We'll take a break. Your reaction to this conversation. This is saturation tragedy TV coverage. Imagine what this freak wanted.